Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful, but kind of invisible forces that's shaping our world, trust. And, well, the pretty serious crisis of trust that's changing how we all live and connect with each other.
So let me ask you something right off the bat. Just think about it for a second. Would you say most people can be trusted? It sounds like a simple question, but your answer really gets to the core of how you see the world around you. But here's where it gets really interesting. Back in 1972, almost half of all Americans said, yeah, you can trust most people. Fast forward to today, that number has tanked. We're down to just about a third. I mean, that is a huge, huge shift in how we view each other.
So, what happened? How did we get here? How did we become a society of strangers? In this first part, we're going to unpack what this whole decline in trust really means. The big idea here is something called social trust. Just think of it like this. It's the invisible glue that holds society together. It's that gut feeling that the person you're dealing with, whether it's a neighbor or a total stranger, is probably going to be decent and play fair. Without that glue, they really start to come apart.
So, what exactly is causing this great unraveling? Well, researchers have zeroed in on three really powerful forces that are basically tearing us apart at the seams.
First on the list, the economy. More specifically, the massive spike in economic inequality we've seen over the last few decades. It makes sense, right? When people feel like the game is rigged, it gets a whole lot harder to trust that other people are playing by the rules.
And to get a handle on just how big this shift is, check out this quote from economist Larry Summers. $1 trillion. That's how much more cash would be in the pockets of the vast majority of American families if things were just the same as they were in 1979. A change that big creates this deep sense of unfairness that just eats away at trust.
And here are the cold, hard numbers. Back in '79, the top 1% took home about 12% of all the income. By 2016, that shot up to 19%. Now look at the other side of the coin. The bottom 50% saw their slice of the pie shrink, from 20% all the way down to 13%. The pie got bigger, sure, but who got the biggest slices changed dramatically.
All right, the second major force pulling us apart is our politics. It's gotten so intense, we're way past just disagreeing about policies now. More and more, we see the other side as, well, not just wrong, but fundamentally untrustworthy, maybe even a threat. And you don't have to look any further than the 2020 election for proof. A whopping 80% of Democrats said they had faith in the result. Compare that to just 32% of Republicans. When we can't even agree on the bedrock of our democracy, it just shows you how deep this chasm of distrust has really gotten.
And the third force, it's all about how we get our information. We've gone from a world where most of us shared a common set of facts to a world where we all live in our own personalized and often conflicting realities.
Think about it. Those old-school sources of shared information, like your daily paper or the nightly network news, their audiences have just cratered. And what's taken their place? Social media, which has absolutely exploded. This creates these little echo chambers where misinformation just spreads like wildfire, and the result is pretty clear. More than half of Americans say that all the fake news out there is seriously damaging their trust in each other.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem and some of the big causes, but let's get real for a second. Why does some academic-sounding idea like social trust actually matter? Well, it turns out the consequences are very real, and they affect every single one of us.
What we're left with is a fractured society. And it's not just a vague feeling. A huge majority of us, I'm talking 70% of Americans, believe this lack of trust is literally making it harder to solve the country's biggest problems.
And the fallout is everywhere. This low trust is what fuels the political gridlock we're all sick of. It makes it nearly impossible to work together on huge issues like climate change or healthcare. It chips away at the basic rules of democracy. And as we're about to see, it has a direct and devastating impact on our actual health.
15 years. Just let that number sink in for a minute. That is the gap in life expectancy between the wealthiest and the poorest men in America. This is not just some random statistic. It's a direct outcome of a system where deep inequality has taken root and trust has completely withered away.
Now, I know this all sounds incredibly bleak, but the story doesn't have to end here. The real question is, can we fix this? Is it even possible to start stitching our society back together?
One of the key ideas for a path forward is something called bridge building, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the hard, intentional work of connecting people across all these divides, political, economic, you name it.
The goal isn't just to talk, but to actually understand one another and maybe even work on some shared goals. So what would that path actually look like? Well, experts point to 3 critical steps. First, we have to find ways to have healthier, more civil conversations. Second, we need to demand more accountability from our institutions so they can start earning back our trust. And third, and this one is so important, we have to rebuild our civic infrastructure.
Okay, so what on earth does civic infrastructure even mean? It sounds complicated, but it's not. It's all about investing in the shared spaces, both real and digital, where we can meet as fellow citizens, not just as members of Team Red or Team Blue. We're talking about things like libraries, parks, community centers, and especially strong, reliable local news. These are the places where trust can actually be planted and given a chance to grow again.
In the end, trust is a choice. It's a choice we make as individuals, and it's a choice we make as a society. It really is the invisible glue holding everything together. And after so many years of it coming unstuck, the challenge for every single one of us is to figure out how do we start making it stick again.